What's good, guys? In this video, to kick this whole thing off, I want to go over what I believe is probably the most important aspect when it comes to looking for your smart money concept trade ideas, because these pockets of time that I'm going to go over with you guys really quickly are going to be the entire catalyst that sets all this up, or when you can expect your trades most likely to start to play out, where you can start to actually find entry points. And I would actually argue that when it comes to time and price, time is actually far more important than price, because a lot of times you'll find price setting up outside of these areas of time and they just won't play out. You'll find that these setups are far less likely to actually work. And when you are trading in those times and taking loss after loss after loss, it can really mess with your psychology, and it'll make you almost believe that the setups and the concepts aren't really that accurate. And I can promise you that if you incorporate this in your strategy, that it's going to make it that much better and that much easier on your psychology, because you'll start to gain that confidence, gain that trust, and you'll see this play out time and time again. So, at first, this will be something that you have to be very mindful of, and you have to keep it in the forefront of your mind, and it has to be very intentional. But as you develop your habit and your model with trading, and you do this long enough, this will kind of just become second nature to you, and it'll just become when you're looking at the market and when you're trading. So obviously, guys, for those of you that didn't know this, which I'm hoping most of you did, the most voluminous times to trade in the market are obviously London session and New York session. The London session is the highest volume of any of the sessions. You have the London session, you have the New York session, you have the Asia session, but you also have the Sydney session. The Sydney and the Asia session are both the lowest volume times to trade in the market, which is why most people generally will stay away from even trading during those sessions. And then they will actually use those sessions as liquidity sweeps, which we'll get into in the next video, in order to find their setups for London or New York. But I would say that me personally, I'm trading 90% of the time during New York session, and for me that is between the hours of 7 a.m. Central Standard Time or 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time up until about 11 a.m. Eastern, right? So I've got a 3-hour window where I'm really looking to capitalize on the market. That is also the London-New York overlap. And that's what we'll spend the majority of our time talking about. But, I do trade London every once in a while because I do trade Forex. So sometimes I get triggered into a limit order that I placed on a currency pair like Euro USD, Euro GBP USD, Euro JPY, Euro GBP, right? Something like that is affected directly by the London session, obviously. So I do trade it sometimes, but I would say actively most of the time I'm trading New York session during this kill zone time, if you will. And the one thing that I wanted to draw your guys' attention to, especially for those of you guys that trade indices like the S&P 500, NASDAQ, Dow Jones, etc., is these thing called macros. So there's these 20-minute pockets of time throughout New York session that seem to matter more than the other pockets of time surrounding it. Because, again, once we get into the concepts like liquidity sweeps, breakup structures, fair value gaps, etc., you'll notice that price behaves around these pockets of time in a way that almost makes it like this is the setup time for your trade most of the time, right? So if you guys were unfamiliar with this, you're going to want to take note of this. I'm going to have this document below the video so you can save it, you can look at it, you can take note of it, whatever you need to do. But the first macro, guys, is between the hours of 8:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or New York local time to 9:10 a.m. Eastern. So it's a 20-minute window right before the New York Stock Exchange open at 9:30, right? And then you have one right after that, about 20 minutes later at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10:10, another one at 10:50 to 11:10. And then right before getting into the New York lunch hour from 11:50 to 12:10 is the last AM session macro. And usually you'll see that these macro sessions, they do a run on liquidity, and then they set up your trade, which we'll get into later on in this boot camp. But lo and behold, you'll start to notice this, and I'm bringing this to your attention right now in the beginning of this, because it's all going to play a part and play a role as we get into the later parts of this boot camp, okay? And then when you get into PM session, you have two 30-minute macros. You have 110 to 140 p.m. Eastern, and then you have 3:15 to 3:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just to clear up, I guess I don't use all trade, both AM and PM session usually. If I find a trade during AM session, I usually just ignore PM session. But for whatever reason, if I don't trade during the AM session, like it's really rangy because we had a huge move from London or something along those lines, then I'll trade PM session. But otherwise, guys, I'm most of the time looking to take my trade during the AM session around these macros, and then be done for the day. So that's how my trading plan works for myself. But nonetheless, I know a lot of people that have a ton of success, and I've had success trading both PM and AM sessions. So it definitely all works, and it's all relative and relevant to what I'm going to go over with you guys in this boot camp. So like I said, this will become second nature to you. The more you do it, the more you pay attention to it. But in the beginning, you might have to just be really focused on these pockets of time while you're learning. But you'll see how this all kind of comes together as this all starts to unfold and we unpack this thing one thing at a time. So I will leave this at that. Take note of this, pay attention to this, and I will see you guys in the next video.